Hey everyone, if you ever wondered if private lessons are worth it, you're in the right place. In this video, I'm going to dive into everything you need to know, why people take them, what you actually get, and whether they're the right choice for you. We'll cover how private lessons can accelerate your learning, help you overcome specific challenges, or even prep you for competition. But I'm also going to share some alternatives that might be better suited for your goals and your wallet. I'll also share my own experience and how you can get the most out of every private lesson you book. Let's get started. Why would someone want to take private lessons? One of the reasons is people want to accelerate their learning. If you're a brand new white belt and you're just learning or just started Jiu Jitsu, it's really hard to get all the fundamentals that you need during a class, especially if you go to a smaller school. They're already on some sort of curriculum, and to get caught up with jiu-jitsu, to learn the very basics essentially of survival, you're not going to get the lessons or the instruction that you need during class. It's going to be very difficult. Now, bigger schools have like white belt specific classes, which are great, but if you go to a smaller school, this is probably not going to be available to you. So being able to take private lessons, you can go ahead and get caught up in class. So this way, the learning curve, which might take you 2 years, with private lessons, you might be able to compress that in 6 months, so you're more effective sooner. Another reason why people don't or people do private lessons is because they do not feel comfortable in the class setting. They just not ready to get someone's imposing the will upon them, and they just may not want to roll, and they just want to do jiu-jitsu for learning the art of jiu-jitsu. And most, obviously with a person who's giving the private lesson, I would imagine that they are a much higher level of technical level than the person taking the private lesson, so they're not going to smash them. And maybe this is one of the things. One of the other reasons too is that people just don't have time to attend class sometimes. If you're a working person, a family person, it might be extremely difficult to attend class at specific hours, so private lessons might work out for you. And other reasons why people take private lessons is they want to work on a specific area of their game, or have specific problems that they need solved that they're having trouble with, just learning in the class or even looking up on YouTube. And another big reason that people will take private lessons is for competition. If you're serious about competition, then you're going to take private lessons to make sure that you give yourself every advantage possible. Are private lessons the first thing I would recommend? Probably not. If you're just starting out and you have a friend that you can work with, I would probably say start here, because finding a training partner to work outside of class with, or before or after class, is going to reap a lot of benefits. And just going right to private lessons is probably not the smartest financial move. And with instructionals and long form YouTube videos out, there's a lot of information out there that you can get. But I think that having a person or a body to practice these moves with, is super important. One of the other things too that you can do to not pay right up front, and maybe you can still get some benefit, is paying someone to review your rolling footage or your competition footage, right? Because there's a lot of high-level guys out there that if you load it up to Dropbox or something, wherever, you pay them $25, $50, $100, I don't know what it costs, to be honest. And they'll review your footage, they'll give you all the key points on it, and they'll give you information on how to prevent it and how to drill or practice for it. So this way, whatever performance deficiencies that you've had, they can go ahead and help you and make sure that that's not a problem for you. So what do you typically get in a private lesson? Private lessons structure is pretty much standard, and so it's basically you come into class, or the session, whatever you want to call it, and the instructor will ask you, so what do you want to work on today? Especially if they don't really know you that well and you don't have a long rapport with them. And so what they do is they usually ask the questions, then they go over the specific scenario, and then they go through a few different variations, and ideally they give you a plan A, plan B, plan C type of deal. So it's pretty standard. I've taken private lessons from, I don't know, probably at least 10 different instructors. So that's always been the format across the board. So how much do private lessons cost, and can you afford it? Now, private lessons, there's no standard in terms of how much it costs, but I'm just going to give you a general idea. So if you're going to take it from, let's say, an instructor or gym owner, but he doesn't have like the high level competition experience background, you're probably going to pay somewhere between 50 to 100 bucks an hour, right? And then if you start getting into the areas where someone has a lot of competition experience, or they've been coaching someone and maybe they're a second, third degree black belt, you're probably going to be paying around 150 bucks. And this is usually for an hour. Now, if you get a world championship guy, a guy that's currently like highest rank or something like that, it probably could be anywhere between 300 to 400. I've heard crazy amounts from 500 to 1,000 bucks an hour. So, you know, I don't know what someone like Don Her, I don't even know if he gives private lessons, but if anyone was going to charge 1,000 bucks an hour, it'd be him. But, you know, a lot of guys that, especially that live here in Austin, you can just hit them up. They offer private lessons. These are high-level guys that compete in ADCC. And I've heard that there's somewhere around $300 to $400 an hour for that. But, you know, if you go to your school, it might be anywhere between $100 to $200 an hour. It just kind of depends, and also where you're at. Why did I start taking private lessons? I just felt that I wasn't getting enough in class, and I actually started taking private lessons a long time ago. So I started doing Jiu Jitsu in 2007, and then I took like 12 years off. But during a white belt, when I was a white belt, I had private lessons from the owner of the gym, Beverly Hills Jiu Jitsu, Marcus Vinicius. And so, you know, he would just really, he watched me roll every day, so he already knew what my problems were. So he just went straight to it. And then I had, you know, other friends, higher level belts, purple belts, brown belts at the time, that would help me out, and I'd come in before class. And so it'd be kind of like a mini private lesson, not so much structured. But I had a lot of different people help me with that. And, you know, when I started taking private lessons, when I got back into Jiu-Jitsu after 2020, my initial reason for taking private lessons was, you know, to help me get caught up in the no-gi game. So Spencer Mummy, Professor Spencer Mummy, who's the owner of Pythagoras Jiu-Jitsu, he is one of the more like high level, he's not as active now as he was before, but he's one of the well-respected leg lockers in the Jiu-Jitsu community. And so he was also my size, and this was one of the problems. I'm 135 pounds, and at the time I started taking lessons from him, he was probably about 145 or something like that. And so having a guy my size to be able to teach me how to move around the way he moves, and to also really teach me about, you know, leg locking on that, I just wasn't getting that in the other schools. So private lessons was really the only way that I can get caught up to speed. You know, in between Spencer and, you know, the other times I take private lessons, I've had some instructors who have been very generous with their time. One of my buddies, Professor Burt, you know, he gave me a lot of his time, and I'd go to the gym in the morning, like 8 a.m. before work. And, you know, it would just be me and him. And so it just naturally came out to be a private lesson because no one would show up in the morning class. So, you know, for a couple of years, he was able to help me develop my game. And so that was a really big help for me because, you know, to be able to have someone look at you roll, watch you roll, and be able to give very specific instructions on how to deal with certain scenarios is extremely important. If you want to get the most out of private lessons, I can't stress this enough. You have to come prepared, right? So coming prepared means writing down a list of questions or problems that you are experiencing, and, you know, be as very specific as possible, because the more specific you are to your specific problem, the easier it is going to be for the instructor to help you. The other thing too is that you want to focus on less. Go deeper in one area versus trying to cover multiple. You know, a lot of times some people, especially if they're just new to private lessons, they're going to try and like cover 5 or 6 things, which is not possible, because when you think about it, let's just say that, you know, you're like, hey, I need help getting out of bottom half guard or something, right? And so you can go into the trilemma where you have, you know, taking the back, you can go for a sweep, you know, you can go for a knee pick. And let's say that's just 3 variations off one specific move. If you try to throw in more than that, you're not going to have the time to really understand what you're doing. So I always say, go deeper in one area, learn the variations of that specific position or move, whatever you're doing, and just take that as the information. Because, you know, if you continue to take private lessons, you'll be able to have more time to ask more questions. Now, what I like to do at the end of each private lesson that I take is I bring my iPhone and a little phone stand, and at the end of this lesson, I just set it up, and then I asked Spencer Mummy to record the session. Now, he'll go through, walk through the technique, I'll be the Yuki. And this is super important because you can't remember everything. There's way too many details, and to do this repeatedly might be impossible to remember all the different details of the move. So I highly recommend make a recording at the end of each session so you can review the technique. Then review the technique every day and drill it as much as you can, because the only way this information is gonna stick is if you actually rep it. Now there might be some moves that you might be able to hit live during class, but I highly recommend finding a training partner and just saying, hey, show them the video so they know exactly what look that they need to give, and drill it as much as you can. So what I usually do is that after I record it, I watch it probably 5 to 10 times to really get the movement drilled down in my head. And then I just find someone to drill with and go through the movement, so this way I can retain. Because you really want to get the most out of your private lessons, and the best way to do that, to get the most out of it, to show the ROI, is to show that you can actually do the move, or at least you understand when it's appropriate to hit it. So should I take private lessons or not? The answer is really up to you. Private lessons are not cheap, and so you have to really think about if you can afford the private lessons or not. Now, you don't have to take them every single week. You can take it once a month. You can take it every 2 weeks. It's really up to you what you can afford. Now, for me, what I usually do is I do it every 2 weeks, because I find that every week I wasn't progressing enough from lesson to lesson, and I felt like I was wasting each lesson. So I find 2 weeks is the perfect number for me, the space in between it, because it allows me to work and try out the moves that I learned, and B, it gives me an opportunity to ask more questions, to find more areas that I'm having issues with. And typically what I'd like to do is I want to plug the big holes in my game, and that's where I focus my private lessons on. Now, if you're competing and you want to work on a specific area of your competition game, I highly recommend spending your time to do this. But at the end of the day, private lessons is not for everyone, and I think there are cheaper ways to get the technique down. But if you can be very efficient with the use of time in your private lessons, then I would say go for it, because for me, it's definitely helped me a lot in my jiu-jitsu, and I will continue to take private lessons in the future. If you found this video helpful, please like this video and subscribe to our channel to support us so we can continue to making videos like this to share for you. Thank you very much.